It's only a matter of time before Giannis eventually leaves Milwaukee, not a matter of if, but when. Whether it's before the deadline or sometime in the offseason, this will be Giannis Antetokounmpo's last season as a Milwaukee Buck. I would go as far as to say there is absolutely no chance that Giannis is still playing in Milwaukee come the 26-27 season, but while most of us, including Bucks fans, have come to accept this reality and everyone is going through the trade machine exploring all types of fake trades and scenarios, everyone has done their videos on where Giannis is going to go, what situation makes the most sense for him and the team that he's going to be joining, and yes, all this will become clear in a couple of weeks as far as the most likely destinations for Giannis's next chapter. There's no doubt in my mind there will be a short list of teams Giannis will tell the Bucks where he is okay being moved to, because he is that type of superstar level player that can make those types of demands and dictate where he wants to go in a trade. But while everyone is focused on Giannis's next chapter and how much that's going to change the landscape of the NBA, to me what I feel isn't being talked about enough, and what's been most interesting to me because I've been talking about it for nearly 2 years now, is the fact that Giannis and equally the Bucks really screwed this whole situation up because they waited too long and now find themselves in a similar situation to that of Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers from a few years back, who ironically, when he was finally traded, ended up going to the Bucks before that quickly fell apart. And I'll explain what I mean by that in this video. Be sure to subscribe if you like this type of content, and in return I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, when the Bucks finally won the championship in 2021 after losing in the conference finals to the eventual champion Raptors in 2019, or losing in embarrassing fashion in the bubble to the Miami Heat, leading up to that championship run in 2021, there was already chatter and speculation about whether Giannis would stick around if this team couldn't get over the hump, given the fact that this was a consensus top 3 player in the league. In fact, most would argue at that time he was the best player in the world, coming off back-to-back MVPs and a season where he just won the MVP award and Defensive Player of the Year award. And if a small market team like the Bucks couldn't bring home a title, would they be able to retain a superstar like Giannis long term? Winning the championship in 2021 quieted all those rumors because Giannis and the Bucks were finally able to get back to a place the franchise hadn't been to since Kareem was in his prime. But ever since that lone championship, the Bucks have had disappointing season after disappointing season, particularly in the playoffs, where they've only managed to win one playoff series since that title, getting beaten in the first round of the playoffs in the last 3 years, and of course now on pace to not even make the playoffs this season with a 10-15 start and Giannis out for the next couple of weeks. And so now, of course, we're at this point. Giannis now 31 years old, realizing he only has a handful of good years left to try and win championships, looking around at this roster, but not even just the roster, but also the Bucks' future assets, the limited draft capital, cap-strapped team, especially with Lillard's dead money on the books for the next 5 years after they waive and stretch his contract, and then, of course, using that extra space to sign Miles Turner to a pretty sizable deal. And so naturally, if you're Giannis, still a top 3 player in the NBA, you don't see any way out of this where you can conceivably compete for a championship in Milwaukee, and because you're under contract, the only thing you can do to try and put yourself in the best position to win is to request a trade. Here's the thing though, Giannis has been more or less soft launching his trade requests for quite some time now, and even still, at the time of this recording, he has not officially requested a trade. All that's been reported is that him and his agent have begun conversations about his future and whether it makes sense for him to stay put or go elsewhere. And if you remember, just 2 years ago, going into the 2023 offseason, when Giannis was extension eligible, he made comments about how he wants to ensure that everyone in the organization is on the same page, that everyone is aligned on the goal of winning a championship, and that until he sees that, he's not signing an extension. And so naturally, the Bucks went into panic mode and made an all-in move to go after Damian Lillard, and trading away the backbone of their defense, their glue guy on their team, and Drew Holiday, along with other future assets like a 2029 unprotected first-round pick and pick swaps in 28 and 30. Which are now starting to look really juicy and valuable if the Bucks do in fact tear this whole thing down. But shortly after the Bucks made that trade, Giannis then signed his Supermax 3-year, $186 million extension that would have him under contract with the team through 2028. And I said at that time in one of my videos that Giannis probably jumped the gun a bit in signing an extension so early, an extension he would likely regret. Now, obviously no one's faulting him for signing a supermax contract, and he's obviously never going to regret getting that kind of guaranteed money. But at the same time, what was puzzling to me is that Giannis didn't have to sign that contract extension that summer. He could have signed that extension anytime during the 23-24 season, or he could have waited until the 2024 offseason and signed for even more money, or could have opted out of his player option and become a free agent, giving him more flexibility to potentially leave Milwaukee if things didn't pan out with Dame. Like, if you're Giannis and you see this team trade for, at the time, still a superstar in Lillard, but a player that was on the wrong side of 30 and on a massive contract, trading away Drew Holiday, wouldn't you want to see at a minimum how the first half of the season goes before you commit to signing an extension? At that time, we had no idea how the fit was going to be. They had just hired a new first-time head coach in Adrian Griffin, who ended up only lasting a half season anyway. Making a snap decision like that by signing that extension after you already made hints that you were wary of the future of this team never made sense to me. And of course, we don't need to rehash what happened. The Dame experiment did not work, and the Bucks got bounced in the first round both seasons he was with the team before suffering a likely career-altering injury. So to me, the reason I say this is actually very similar to how Damian Lillard's time ended in Portland is because for years we saw Dame trying to do this whole dance where he kind of wanted out of Portland but didn't want to make it seem like he was forcing his way out of Portland, given he always preached loyalty, always preached how he would never ring chase, and being in a small market, being a beloved player in the community, he didn't want to be that guy that forced his way out. He wanted it to be one of those situations where he could make it seem like the team decided to go in another direction. Until, of course, Dame finally had enough, realized his career wasn't going anywhere in Portland, and would in fact demand a trade. And that dance that both him and Portland tried to do for years ultimately ended poorly for Dame, demanding to only be traded to Miami. The Blazers saying, "We're not doing that, you'll go where we trade you." Of course, that relationship has been amended with Dame now back in Portland and will likely end his career there. But I think most would agree Dame, as well as the Blazers, would have been best served had Dame just asked out sooner and could have played some of his prime years for a true contender. We're more or less seeing the same thing play out with Giannis and Milwaukee. The only difference being the Bucks actually have a championship to their name, and Giannis is obviously a higher level superstar than Dame ever was. But it's similar in the sense that Giannis continues to put the Bucks on notice. The Bucks try and do everything they can by moving mountains, even when they don't make the best move for their future in mind to keep Giannis happy, when at the end of the day, both sides probably know this team has hit its ceiling and that it would be in the best interest of both parties to move on. Something that probably should have happened 2 years ago when Giannis was 2 years younger, truly at his ultimate peak, and could have had more runway for a longer championship window on another contender. Because here's the other thing that most fans probably don't realize is that while yes, Giannis is going to net the Bucks a sizable haul in the form of a trade, including multiple first-round picks and young players, it's not going to be this insane haul that most people are thinking. The kind of haul I've been seeing in the fake trades flying around on Twitter, because you have to understand that team executives are starting to realize going all in, trading your entire arsenal of future assets for one player, no matter who the player is, isn't the best idea anymore, not in today's CBA. And not when we're seeing more and more value being placed on draft picks, which has essentially become franchises' currency in today's NBA. Not in just using the picks to draft players, but as assets that can be packaged to go for win-now players. Not only that, you also have to remember that Giannis, wherever he ends up going, is going to want to go to a contender. The teams that will have a legitimate chance at winning a title. And there aren't that many of them that have ample draft capital and assets that could even send the Bucks in exchange for Giannis. Yes, the Thunder would. They would have plenty of draft picks to be able to send to the Bucks for Giannis. But why fix something that isn't broken if you're the Thunder? The Spurs do as well, and honestly, that's probably the best destination that makes the most sense for Giannis, and the one that would probably produce the best return for the Bucks as well. But we also know that Giannis wants to be in a big market. He said that before, not only about himself, but he's also said that about other big-name European players. We already know he was open to a trade with the Knicks, even though the trade never materialized. The Knicks, they have very little draft capital to send to the Bucks. Teams like the Warriors or even the Lakers or Clippers, even though I can't see a scenario where Giannis would even want to come near the disaster that is the Clippers, but they also don't have future assets that are going to be attractive to the Bucks. The Bulls, I'm not even going to go there. They have the assets from a draft capital standpoint, but they've been so bad, I don't know why Giannis would ever want to come to Chicago. So yes, I don't think the Bucks are going to get some kind of insane, unprecedented offer like they're probably hoping to get. And for Giannis's part, I mean, really, unless he's being traded to the Thunder, here. Does he actually have a legit shot at winning a title or multiple titles as he desires on another team? He waited too long. He waited too long for it to get to this point. Both Giannis and the Bucks kicked the can down the road when it would have made more sense to sever ties earlier, when guys like Gobert were netting 5 first-round picks or Bridges 6 first-round picks, instead of trying to make something work that had already passed its expiration date. So where does Giannis go from here? I don't really know. All I know is this should have been done years ago, and both the Bucks and him are probably going to be worse off for it. Just my take on the matter. I would love to hear what you guys think though. You let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.